Do you remember the first thing you ever tried to build?
The first thing I ever tried to build. Yeah, I do. I was very.
What was it?
Isn't like business wise.
Yeah.
I sold wire cards. I think that's part of the story I tell.
Oh wow.
Yeah, in the hood. You know,
I've
didn't I tell you
interviewed.
that
I've
story?
interviewed you 3 times. I'm not sure if you've ever mentioned that one.
No, I tell that story all the time.
Are you
No,
sure?
I was like 6 years old, man. Yeah. So, but basically, grew up in Kasi. Quickly realized my mom could only do so much, and then I wanted to make some extra cash. So, in the hood, you've got cheese boys, and then you've got the poor side. But the one thing we had in common, we all liked wire cars, but the cheese boys can't make wire cars. So because cheese boys can't put a wire car together, me and my boys would put wire cars together, and then every township has single entrance. So you wait at the 4-way stop, and then you sell the wire cars. And the cheese boy parents would buy the wire cars from us. I think it was like, 50 Rand for one or something. That was my first unofficial business.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Do you feel like you were still playing, just trying to see what you could do? Obviously, with the context of, I need to help at home.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're figuring out what it means to find opportunities and explore them.
Look, when I tell the story now, it sounds deep, but back then, it's a way of life, I always say entrepreneurship got a name for me when I got into that grade scholarship. And that was first year. Whereas it's a way of life. It's how you do things, you know what I mean? It's not called entrepreneurship, High school, I ran a car wash. We made good money. We used to cut grass. I remember we had those long machines that you hold. I think a mate of mine borrowed one, got a shovel, buggy overall, just walk up and knock on people's houses whose yards look like they're messy. And you cut the grass and then you trim. And then, I remember there you'd make a lot of money. You'd walk back around 5 and you like umbashi. You look like a mess. But you're what happened? But you're coming back with $800, you know what I mean, or $1,000. So, but that wasn't entrepreneurship in a formalized way, And I think that's why, going to SOA too, every corner someone's selling something, everywhere, even in my hood, people are selling things. Everybody's hustling, but it's not in a podcasty way.
No.
Entrepreneurship.
It's also not the business plan, the business model canvas.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not that structured sort of thing.
Yeah. So now, yes, you can sit on a podcast and twang about it. But where I come from, it's a way of life. It's nothing special with, car wash or... I remember the coolest business, which I think was a really high revenue business, or good margins at least. We used to do work that Abu Mama didn't want to do. So they didn't like washing windows or washing blankets or like that. There's a bulky spring cleaning work that they're always reluctant to do. So I think there was a gang of us, like 10 or whatever. We get to a house and then we just wash the windows, you wash the like all the big work, and we would get paid, But then, we can call it entrepreneurship now. Yes, entrepreneurial mindset, da-da-da. But it's a way of life. It's nothing special, you know what I mean? And I think it's only when I got out the hood and you get to UCT and then you're at Alan Gray, then they're like, oh, you have an entrepreneurial mindset. Actually, during my Alan Gray interview, they kept saying that, you have an entrepreneurial mindset.
And he's just like,
you know what I mean? I'm going, okay, what is that? I just want to be an actuary, you know what I mean? Like, my main thing, I just wanted to be an actuary, but you're entrepreneurially minded, But I think going through that process, it was better defined, got to understand it better. But where I come from, you have no choice. It's a way of life. It's nothing special.
Yeah. I've interviewed you a bunch of different times about what you're building.
I'm in the lead. And I'm proud.
And it's
I'm
like
proud.
It's such an honor to have these experiences with certain entrepreneurs where I've interviewed you at different parts of your journey, right? And
100%.
Where you are now versus that first interview is like a lifetime in between.
Dude.
How differently, is that vision that you had at the beginning versus what you guys are trying to build now?
I think the vision, the bigger picture is roughly the same. But the mechanics have changed. The mechanics have overhauled. And I think that's why I always say, you know, entrepreneurs should not fall in love with the idea, almost fall in love with the problem. You know, we know certain things are wrong in agriculture, you know, and everybody can ask anybody, they'll tell you, makes no sense for Africa to have, you know, so much arable land. Almost everyone is a farmer, but we're completely dependent, you know, from, or at least we net importers when it comes to food, you know. There's a lot of, we can agree on all those problems, but then the how to solve the problem is what we've had to adapt over time. And in 2018, if you spoke to me, I was very passionate about what we were doing then. In 2020, I was very passionate. Now I look back and I'm like, what the hell were we doing? You know what I mean? So you need to be flexible enough to not fall in love with the idea or the specific solution, but fall in love with the problem, because then you can adapt. And I think that's why I kind of say the vision is still the same, but the mechanics have changed. The way we're doing business, how we're tackling it has changed, and that's how you grow. But if you fall in love and you hold that idea and, you know, you just become stubborn about it, you're going to die 100%.
Yeah. You talk about like passion versus, you know, this other way of thinking about it where it's more practical, right? Like at the beginning, it's just energy. You're just like excited. You're just like, yo, I've got this idea, I've got this thing. And then as, you know, you grow, it becomes more practical, building systems into it and stuff like that. How do you still, you know, keep the same level of energy, but also perseverance to say, you know, I know my initial idea was right. As much as I have to change the way I actually pursue that vision.
I think the biggest thing or the biggest contribution of a founder in a business is delusion. I think that's, for me, it's my strongest trait, you know. To be delusional is very, very important, you know, because I look at what we were doing when we started, and if I met me now and I told me now, I'm like, we're going to change, we're going to farm to table. Every small farmer is going to take to the table. What? I'd be like, what are you saying, Chief? You know what I mean? But had I not had that delusion at that time, wrong as I was in the approach, you know, in how we were tackling the problem, we would not be here today. So I think that concept of being delusional or believing, okay, maybe, I don't want to get misquoted here, but the passion where you have that drive, and you know what I mean? I think that's quite important. And I think we would not be here today if we were not as passionate about loading spinach in a Polo or loading spinach at the back of an H100. We wouldn't be moving 32-ton trucks, 16-ton trucks here. So I think that entrepreneurs bring that, because entrepreneurs look at the facts, they look at something where people say it can't be done, and they say it can. And in the moment, it's very delusional, you know what I mean? But then they persevere throughout the process because they've got this bigger picture. And then when it makes sense, all of a sudden you're a hero. All of a sudden everybody wants to pat you on the back. So I think that ability to be confident, that ability to have the passion, but to have a screw loose, you need to have a screw loose, I think, if you're going to build something big. I think the people that have changed the world and molded it in one direction or the other, they all have a screw loose. They all saw something and said, no, this is not the right way. It needs to be a different way. And in that moment, it doesn't make sense. But when everybody's doing it later, now you look like you're some sort of hero. So I wouldn't say, I think now we still have the passion. I think the passion is there. I love what I do. But now it's a more structured delusion. You know, now I understand the industry a lot better, but I'm still going, yeah, that's wrong. That's going to change. Everybody's going, no, but this has been done for years. So you still need, it's what you bring to the table. You know, I see it now that we're hiring guys who are experts in their field and they have 40 years experience, you know, and you tell a guy who knows way better than you that, trust me, we're going to do it this way and it's going to work, you know. So part of the founder's value is that element of just a screw loose, you know, not too loose, just the right amount. Just the right amount.
Not Elon loose.
No, hey. Hey, we are being recorded.
I'm not going to get you in trouble. I promise. I think at the beginning of this, I said I wouldn't get you in trouble. Do you know, when you think about things, you know, the journey that you've had, was there key moments or turning points where you did have to, you know, lean more into that structured passion, where, you know, we feel very strongly about something or the direction in which we want to build something, but the market is saying something different. The customers are saying something different. The partners are saying something different.
Yeah.
And you guys have to pivot and think differently about how you want to do something.
100%. I think, look, the one thing we did right, so I look at those kids who had the idea years ago. The one thing we did right, we never viewed ourselves as the smartest guy in the room. We never viewed ourselves as knowing the industry. I think for 2-3 years, we were in a pilot. We were very intentional about saying we're in a pilot, meaning AKA we don't know what we're doing, but we're going to build stuff, and then the farmers need to tell us if they like it, if it works, or if it doesn't work. So I think our biggest trait is coming into the industry saying, look, we don't know. And to this day, we still do that. Coming in saying we don't know, we're going to observe, we're going to take feedback, and then we're going to adapt, and we're going to adapt, and we're going to adapt. So till this day, we've kept that same attitude of saying, asaz, we actually don't know what's the best way to tackle this thing, but we're going to listen, we're going to build, and we're going to take feedback. That's why the platform we had then is not the platform we had now. The business model we had then is not the business model we have now. The approach we had then is not the approach we have now, because we're constantly adapting. And that's how the market works. That's how the business environment is always changing, so you can't be too static. In terms of structure, I think in a team, you still need the delusional people, the passionate people. But then as it grows, you start to bring people who are good at structure. I suck at structure. I hate structure. I don't like being confined to too many rules. I need the freedom. So you want a balance of the structuredness, but still have that delusional, semi-delusional passion. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
Speaking about the team that you have now, obviously this has taken so long, and you guys are tripling in size as well. What are the things that you were looking for in the people that you were hiring at the beginning that you look at and you're like, okay, these are part of our values?
Yeah.
And we still looking for those things in the people that we're hiring now.
Yeah.
But also, how different are the people that you're hiring now in the structured growth scale phase?
Yeah.
Versus the passion, excited, let's just push phase.
Yeah, look, I think the one thing I'm proud of that I did, because I think I officially became the CEO in 2020. And the first thing I did was we have a culture document at Khula. So we actually have a bit of a constitution, right? Which says this is the environment that we want to work in. These are the values that we all abide by. So I think we've split it into two parts. One is about how we treat each other as people. And then the second part is how we treat our work. And I remember when I set up that document in 2020, 2021, the title said, Series A, what's it going to take? And that's what's outside the cover. And those values inside then determined how we hire, how we go about things. And now we had a retreat with the team in Jan, and we're revisiting that document. And those principles, we didn't delete any principles. There's still things that we stand by, and they're the things that have gotten us to the point that we are at now. I think the new dynamics now, the team is a whole lot more diverse in the sense that, agriculture has two sides to it. And I think our team shows, you have a very young side and you have a much older side. You have a very much more blacker side and you have a much more whiter side. And you've got, our team is a blend of, somebody who's 55, being best friends in the office with somebody who's 22, you know what I mean? Because we kind of resemble, the industry as a whole. So I think we've kept our values, and I think having that culture document has really guided how we hire. Whereas a lot of the time you'd be interviewing a guy and you realize this guy's an a-hole. He's really good at his job. He's the best guy in the market, but he's just an a-hole. And I have to sit with Ayanda, sit with Matt, and go, look, we're not going to hire this guy, even though he's good. Because you bring an a-hole into the team, you're going to ruin the whole team dynamic. You know what I mean? So we still have kept those values. And to a large extent, we're adding to the list as opposed to taking away, which means we're keeping the values we started with. We're just adapting a bit more now as we go into the next phase of the business.
Yeah. You've always spoken very openly about, the challenges of navigating, the agriculture industry, right?
Yeah.
And this is a very complicated landscape to navigate.
Yep.
And with that diversity of a team now, I guess that is different from what you were navigating in the beginnings or the growing of it as well.
Yeah.
What are the early lessons that you learned about how to navigate agriculture that you think young people that want to start businesses in this space need to understand?
Yeah.
And is there anything that you've learned from that space that has showed you how differently it is to run a business from, say, your peers who are running businesses in other spaces?
Look, I mean, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to be politically correct.
I hope this is not gonna be the press answer. This is the time where you go, oh wait, guys, sorry.
No, man. I think, look, we're a business, number one, and I tell the team that we are not a political party. We're a business. We are contributing to the GDP of the country, and our work is embedded in providing access where there is none, providing opportunity where there is none, but we are a business. We're not a political party, right? And I think a lot of founders tend to blur that line, where in agriculture, you need to be able to navigate multiple spaces. You need to be able to navigate a far right type of farmer who's still giving you those tomatoes that you need to be able to supply. Or maybe I'll give you an example. We had a farmer that needed to export some stuff. And we needed to use a pack house in order to export that farm's product. And the nearby pack house was owned by a commercial farmer, old commercial farmer guy, who was not very particularly fond of people with a shade like mine and yours, And I remember, I think Ayanda went the first time, and this guy said some things, and she came back, which made her mad. And in my head, I've got this black farmer that needs to export, you know what I mean? And I had to go, stood by the gate. I remember the guy didn't even open the gate. He was standing on the other side, and he's like, hey, what do you want? What are you looking for? And I'm like, listen here. I remember I literally told that guy how much money he was going to make, how much more volume he was going to get, estimated roughly how much he was making and why this was a good deal for him. That man opened the gate. He called his wife. He's like, oh, Karidas. We had a nice braai that day. We chilled, and he said, look, I was like, I went from standing outside the gate to being his best mate, because to some level, I showed him the business case for it. So the alternative there would have been to say, oh man, you're a racist or you're whatever, we're not going to work with you at all. But this black farmer, these black farmers that needed the pack house in order to export would have not exported. You know what I mean? So I think it's a fine line, and I think you need to know how to navigate the space. And I like that our team is diverse, because sometimes you have to send the person that specific farmer can better relate to. If I've got a farmer and vendor, a big farmer that we want to get on board, I want a vendor speaking guy talking to that farmer, because they can connect. They can share jokes that I wouldn't be able to show because I don't have vendors, or I can't speak vendor as well as somebody else on the team. So we try to navigate the space. And yeah, I'm not sure if that makes sense, but you're not necessarily, yes, you've got values and you need to keep those values. But we're not a political party at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We're not going into everything trying to fight. We're navigating this industry, and we're trying to create value within the parameters that are among us. And now with what's happening with Elon and Trump and all this stuff around agriculture, we're seeing it, it's stuff we see it live, you know what I mean? But you need to know how to navigate the industry, because at the end of the day, we're a business, and we want to provide value, and our business is embedded in providing access. It's embedded in providing opportunity. And sometimes you take a few hits on the chin to get the bigger goal out, and then you start making sure your team has the right composition for you to get your overall objective across the road.
Yeah. People say, entrepreneurship is a personal growth journey.
Yeah.
Disguised as a capitalistic
brother.
pursuit.
Your brother.
You're talking about just like your adaptive nature of going into spaces like that, where this is a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
There are beliefs, there are values. The challenges are not necessarily clear cut.
Yeah.
What are the things that you've learned about yourself most, and how have you had to grow as a person to be able to lead not just an organization, but a platform that provides meaningful impact?
Entrepreneurship is a scam.
Did you say scam?
It's a scam. It's a big scam. Because in the beginning, everything you thought it was is not. And I think in the end, it boils down to Mike Tyson said something like, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. You're getting punched in the face every single day. And it's going to boil down to your ability to take those punches. I think entrepreneurship has shaped me, man. I think it's shaped me big time. You know, for me, my life has been cool, especially in my 20s. I think now I'm trying to add, you know, additional elements. But like everything, Monday to Friday, it's cooler. Saturday, Sunday. Saturday, maybe I'm chilling, but I've got a cooler stress at the back of my mind. Sunday afternoon, I'm working on it. So I think it's shaped me a lot in terms of how I've grown, even in the role of being a CEO, to better understand structures, better understand how to serve a team, my own internal team of people who are very different, with different beliefs, different backgrounds. It's grown me, but more than anything, it's taught me resilience. Like I think, especially when you come from the bottom, there's very few hits that I can't take. So I think I've picked up a lot of resilience throughout building this business, and learning to adapt. You know, learning to change when the market is not changing when the market is changing, but to best position yourself, you know, within the change that's happening around you. So yeah, I think it's a crash course on life, on everything. I was telling my mates, you know, you're 13 now. I was like, oh no, you don't ever get, you know.
Yeah.
Because my last girlfriend broke up with me because you're emotionally unavailable, you know. And emotionally unavailable, basically, you know, means it's cooler. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you're sitting there, you're telling me your problems, and I'm going, man, I need to get this trade across the line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it actually consumes you, especially when you're building from the ground up. But I enjoy it. I think it's tough, but it's addictive. And even when I'm on leave, you know, you miss it. It's an addictive. It's an abusive relationship. That's what it is. It's almost like a toxic. We're all in a toxic relationship with entrepreneur. You like it. You don't want to be without it. You want to be, you know what I mean? Yeah.
There's a couple of things I want to chat about what you just said. The first one is like, how important is that choosing a partner that understands
your chief?
That look, man, I'm not like...
So for days, all you need is love. That is fine, yeah?
You know, like, I think it takes so much for someone to have that context and be able to love you through that.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about that, like the fact that this is your first wife, and then like whoever comes after needs to understand that reality of like, oh no, you know, like I've dedicated myself to something deeply. Yeah,
man. I think it's also the sheer responsibility of it, because I'm kind of going, okay, we have an anniversary, sharp, it's great, it's coming up, you know. But hey, this guy wants to meet on the same day, you know, and this deal is potentially a couple of $100 for us, you know what I mean? So I have to come back, you know what I mean? So if I have to make that choice, I'm responsible for. I have to be responsible in how I make, you know, that choice, and sometimes, often, that will get you not be the best partner to someone, and I totally get that. But it comes at a price. It comes at a, you know, you're committed to it. You're thinking about it in the morning. You're waking up early. You're finishing late, and you can't. That's what success comes with. It comes with that level of commitment. And I think individually you make a choice to say, in this stage of my life, what's most important? And I think for me in my 20s, definitely it was getting Khula off the ground. It was definitely getting to Khula to where it is today. And perhaps in my 30s, I can adapt things. But definitely it takes a lot of work. And any big company, whether it's a Google, whether it's a Facebook, any of these big companies, if you look at the early days of those founders, the stories are wild.
Yeah.
And it takes a special kind of person to be able to coexist with someone like that, you know, who's constantly working. If you want to know where to find me, 36 Rose Street, I'm in the office, I'm working. You know what I mean? So it comes at a price. It comes at a price. You can't, there's this big work-life balance thing that's trending.
Self-care.
Self-care, everybody loves it. But hey, man, if you want to win, you have to work, and and oftentimes you have to outwork your competition. You have to be smarter, you have to be sharper. But if you're busy work-life balancing all the time, you know, you're going to get left behind. Not to say work-life balance is off, but like it takes a certain level to build something great. And it takes a lot from you if you want to build something great. You know, if you want to build something mediocre, yeah. But when I build something great, it takes a certain level of commitment. And sometimes that will come at a price of sometimes partners and whatever. And if you are happy to pay that price, that's okay. And in my 20s, I was more than happy to pay that price.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maria Shatang.
Not in this economy.
The other thing you mentioned was serving.
Yeah.
Serving people. And, other people, I think, have less service-based businesses where they are serving people, serving communities, driving impact in communities where it really matters.
Yeah.
Does that come with a certain level of pressure for the work that you guys are doing? But also, can you tell stories about, the impact that you've seen the platform you guys have built have on the people on the ground?
100%. And I think, at every event we always have the farmers there so that they can tell, their stories. If you go on our YouTube, we've got so many videos just documenting the farmer stories. The beauty of our work is that it speaks directly to real people and it speaks directly to real livelihoods. And also agriculture is such a labor intensive industry that if you are able to get a farmer a market through an offtake, if you're able to get them funding, the amount of employment that they create in that rural town is completely shocking. I think last year we were opening a pack house in Venda. And I think when I went there, I didn't know the farmers because the team works with them. But the reception I got was almost a king's reception, from farmers that I hadn't actually even met. Because, and the farmers are telling me their stories that, hey, we employed this many extra people, we got this much output, we doubled what we did last year. So the reality and that's what I love about what we do, is that we can sleep well at night because we've found a way to tie doing good into our business proposition. So when we make money, it means a farmer sold something to a market. If we make money, it means a farmer got funded. When we make money, it means a farmer got technical support. So doing good is embedded in the fabric of our business. And when you talk to the farmers and you see the stories, you can break down in a lot of cases because, like, for example, we've started doing a lot of stuff around financing and the farmers have been getting rejected by banks left, right, and center. And we've sat down initially with ABSA and we said, look, how do you find a way to fund these guys, but not using the traditional rule book? Let's use the platform to de-risk them. And when they get access to that financing, the implications of it are crazy. I mean, I got some numbers from Ayanda this morning. Just last year alone, I think there were 1,000 new jobs created just from the programs that she runs. Those are 1,000 people. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's quite it's fulfilling, number one, but also it's I don't want to say a weight, but it gives you a greater
appreciation,
purpose, to keep going, because the work is not just about you. The work is about a certain segment of people or the industry as a whole. And what you get in SA agriculture, even to this day, the way we segment our farmers is on a scale of C1 to C5. And a C1 to C3 is predominantly black farmers, and C4 to C5 is your more commercial type farmers. There's a very few emerging black farmers that get to commercial level, that get to a level where they become commercial farmers. And there's a lot of barriers that hinder them, stuff such as financing, etc. So when we're able to get one guy from a C3 level to a C4 level, the implications of it are, it's employment, it's crazy stuff. It's the ripple effect of what we do is incredibly inspiring.
When you think about, what the app started as, and then evolving to a platform and now to an ecosystem, can you compare what it was at the beginning versus what you guys are doing now and what you're about to do in the next few years?
I mean, in the beginning, we're so far from that. I think that some of the principles have stayed, but initially it was just about connect a farmer to a market. But we didn't actually understand how deep the problems went. It's not just about connecting, a farmer to a market. How do you connect a farmer to a market? How are they going to plant? They have to plant. If they have to plant, it means they have to get funded at some point. Somebody has to finance them being able to plant. And then if they're going to plant, they have to plant correctly. They need the right technical support. Agriculture is a very scientific industry. You need a soil report, a water report, which is going to tell you how much to put in the soil to get what out. So I think there we had a narrow view. But like I said, we were a bit naive, we were a bit delusional, which was okay. But we were passionate at the time. And as we've drawn closer into the industry, we realized that the problems are not individual, they're interlinked. So this problem exists because there's a failure here, and you can't solve this one without this one. And if you try to solve problems in agriculture, particularly in isolation, the likelihood of failure is very high because it's such an interlinked ecosystem. And that's how we positioned our business now, where our prime customer or prime segment of customer is a farmer that will get funded through our platforms, a farmer that will get inputs through our platforms, and a farmer that will then supply offtake. So it's almost what our regional managers do, who we have around the country in all the provinces. When it's time to plant, the regional manager is saying, okay, here's some technical support. Here is, here's the best price for fertilizer, the best price for this. And then when it's time to harvest, he's saying, okay, this buyer is going to pay this much, this buyer is going to pay this much, this buyer is going to pay this much. When it's time to fund, it's like this bank is offering this percent, this one's offering this percent. So it's almost, to add true value to a farmer, you need to understand how the three components come together. And that's how we positioned our business.
How do you guys measure success now versus how you used to before?
I think success back then was not failing.
It was just like, look, if we're alive.
It's like, we're alive. We woke up. We're still here, And I think back then it was, I remember there was a time where Matt and I, it was just about staying in Joburg. I think very few people are actually from Joburg. There was a year where it was like, we're still in Joburg. We paid rent this month. We're still here. You know what I mean? So there was a time in the early days, it was very much about not failing, or at least not quitting. And I think now it's about the level of impact that we can have, but not so much impact. I think that's a very loosely used word. But for us, it's about changing how the composition of the industry. The same narratives you would have heard about agriculture 10 years ago are very similar. Now in terms of the composition of the industry, particularly with moving C3 level farmers to a C4 level. So now it's more impact. It's more, are we actually changing, the way the industry actually works? But then you lift your head and you realize Southern Africa has the same problem that SA have. You realize that East Africa has similar problems. You realize that Latin America has similar problems to what we have. So it's about, how can we scale this impact? How can we scale what we've got right with a smaller group in South Africa and scale that to the world? So now it's about taking the solution to the world, if that makes sense, or scaling the level of impact that we're having.
Yeah. You guys have taken funding previously
Yes.
to really expand what you guys are trying to do and have it reach a lot more farmers and drive this impact that you speak of. How is taking on funding and the type of funding that you took in?
You really want to get me in trouble?
Not at all. I'm just, I think everyone says funding is going to help them build better, right? I'm just curious, as someone who's experienced this at a very high level, how does funding change the way you operate? And how intentional do you have to be about where the business is aggregated and focused once that comes in?
Look, my first statement, there will always be funding by itself is not worth much. It's like, the people who give lifts to people on the highway. When you say to them, "Zokutheleli petrol," I'll pour petrol for you. The guy will be like, "No, pour petrol and give any petrol." Like, you can't, ride the petrol. The car has tires, the car has windows, etc. So funding in and of itself is not everything. I think, and I think SA, I still think there's a huge focus on give me funding and I'll do a business, whereas actually there needs to be something that the funding can propel. So it's almost like a turbo. And I think that's how you should kind of view it. You need to build a good vehicle, but then the funding is almost a turbo to accelerate the thing that you are building. The way we went about it, and we've still gone about it the same way, we went with getting funders that are aligned with our goals. So for example, if you look at ABSA is looking, at growing their share in the emerging market. They're looking at, growing emerging farmers and supporting them. And Khula is a vehicle, that helps them get that mandate across. Similarly with PepsiCo, They're looking to procure a lot more locally. You know, they're looking to procure a lot more within South Africa. They're looking to, you know, procure a lot more from emerging farmers, etc. So Khula becomes then a natural plug and play. Similarly with ACI. So I'm always proud of our cap table, our board meetings and our shareholders meetings, because it's not just about the bottom line. It's shareholders that we are in the trenches with. It's not just, hey, I gave you 10 Rand and then it's financial year end, you made a loss, where's my money, where's my money? That's a very different kind of conversation. And I think perhaps at a later stage, maybe Series B, Series C, then the VC type of funding is fine. But I think for us, it makes more sense, especially given the complexity of the industry, to be with shareholders that understand the complexity of the industry. Agriculture is odd because if you miss the planting window, it's only going to come back next year. So it means if you got it wrong, if we get it wrong in August or September, that's not coming back again. You have to wait again because we work with seasons. You work with winter and with summer, etc. So you need investors that understand the intricacies of the industry. So that's worked well for us because when I sit with my shareholders, it's about how do we move this forward in light, despite the challenges. Whereas somebody who's just giving you money is going to say, hey, your margins are low, your what multiple is not good, this is not good, can we sell this rather so we can recoup our money, find the nearest buyer? But I would rather a shareholder that's invested in the thing with you. Yeah.
And you're tied at the hip in doing this.
In executing.
So, you know, I think it's time. What's the next step?
Yeah, but it's exciting times for us. Last year was a really good year. It was a very strong year for us. Numbers-wise, we did really well. And I think the plan was always after our seed round in 3 years' time to do our Series A round. So we've closed our Series A. Well, not close it, we closed the internal part. So interesting story linking to what I've said. So the plan was to do the Series A. And when we get to Series A, I tell the board, hey, we're going to do Series A. At this point in time, we think we're ready now. We agree we're going to do it. We put everything together. And then the way our agreements are set up is that we start internally. So I ask, you know, the board and the shareholders, I'm like, hey, how much is everybody looking to come in, you know? And we probably raise 80% of the money just with the existing shareholders.
That's incredible.
Which is crazy.
What an incredible show of faith, because that says, you know, we appreciate the work that you've done with the investment we've already made. Let's see what you can do if we backed you even more.
100%. So 80% of the funds that we raised literally came from existing shareholders. So, and what we've just closed now and what we're announcing now is the closing of the internal round. We probably have about 3 tickets left that we're going to open up to external shareholders. But the confidence of the shareholders that are already there, who see the numbers, but who we execute with on a daily basis. And that's the other beauty of our shareholders, is that Ayanda's team talks to Absa a lot. Yanni's team, ACI, they speak to them a lot. And on the trading side, I speak to PepsiCo quite a lot. So we are embedded not only as shareholders, but even at an execution level. And we raise 80% of the funds internally. We raised about 130 million just internal. We're looking at hitting... we'll hit away. There's a number we're looking at hitting. And we're getting a couple of external investors that are going to be coming in. So we'll be announcing that. I think it should be announced by the time this comes out.
Yeah.
And then again, with new external investors that we will be getting at the table, it's still the same logic. It's not just give us money. Money is not a problem per se. It's how do we align? What additional value are you bringing to the table? So it's super exciting for myself and the team. The team is growing in size, and we're going to be setting up some pilots outside of South Africa as well for the first time, which is really, really cool. So that by the time we get to the Series B, we want to be looking at deeper into SADC, deeper into East Africa, maybe perhaps even Latin America, parts of Asia. It's super exciting to see this thing that started on the back of a VW Polo, us reclining seats, putting spinach and turning the aircon on. And you look at what the volumes we're doing now, it's incredibly exciting. It's incredibly, incredibly exciting. So it's a watershed moment for us to see the business grow. But we had a plan. We've stuck to that plan. It's 3 years later as we had planned. And we've just closed this round. But it's been closed internally because the existing shareholders, they see what we're doing. they believe in it, and they're executing with us. And that's why I would always encourage founders, find a shareholder with where your interests aligned, not just somebody who's going to give you money and say, did you make a profit?
It's incredible to hear you talking about these numbers and these with such calm and just like, oh no. This is the entrepreneurship that you were mentioning in the beginning.
Funding
right?
is not profit. Funding is not profit. I need to deliver.
I think it's incredible what you guys have achieved, and like having purpose at the center of it makes it so much more important and impactful.
100%.
What do you hope this Series A helps you achieve out into the market in impact and work?
It's definitely huge on impact. Like I said, doing good is embedded into our business model. So there's no way we make money unless we help the farmer sell, unless we help the farmer get funding, unless we help the farmer get a good price on their inputs. So for me now, it's really about us scaling the solution. We've got incredible experts on the team now. I mean, we've got guys who are absolute beasts from the corporate world, who bring a level of expertise that we haven't had. I think when you're a founder, you're a generalist. You know a little bit of that, a little bit of that. But now we're going in a direction where everybody's kind of an expert in their unique field. So that's super exciting to get those, additions to the team. The kind of numbers we're talking now in terms of what we're supplying, it's scary numbers, but then you see those numbers happen on a daily basis. You see those trades go through. And it's really about scaling what we have been doing and taking it to a much bigger level. But what we're doing is fundamentally changing the fabric of how the industry works. It's giving access to farmers that haven't had access. If a farmer is sitting in the middle of Thohoyandou and Qwaqwa or wherever, and they don't know where to get a technical expert to advise them on a certain thing, it's on their phone.
Yeah.
If they don't know, if they want to get a fair price for fertilizer, they can have 4 or 5 companies and compare what those guys are charging. If they want access to market, you know how hard it is to sell to a supermarket or to sell to an FMCG chain. As one farmer sitting in Tabanchu, it's almost impossible, for you have to drive and they have to onboard you on their database. As long as you're on Khula, you can now sell to the biggest supermarket chains. You can sell to the biggest FMCG lines. And that's all now within your phone. And when it's time to look for funding, you could get commercial funding, you could get developmental funding. The idea is to kind of provide more seamless access, regardless of where you are, that you can access the help that you need. So it's almost like a superpower. And the one way to think about it is a farmer in a rural town, not knowing where to start and having the tools that they need, at the palm of their hand. And I think that's the vision as we scale is to provide that access, but also to change the narrative, to allow these emerging first generation, black farmers to be able to cross over to a point where they actually are commercial. And we don't only work, with emerging black farmers, we work with commercial guys as well. Even for them, it's the unit economics, making sure that the pricing makes sense. For them, it's this guy's paying 5 Rand for my thing. If you come in with a 7 Rand deal, great. So it's really about scaling the impact. It's about scaling the impact and taking it to another level. But what I like about it, it changes the fabric of the industry, changes the composition of the industry. And I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the industry. And that's why you're seeing all the headlines you've been seeing the past week. But when you get into it, you realize that we're a lot more similar than we are different. And you realize that farmers actually want a lot more similar things, but in the media, it's a lot of extremism. It's a lot of far left and far right. But on the ground, farmers are very simple people who want fair price for what they plant, fair price for their inputs, and non-predatory funding. And that's kind of what we are trying to give them access to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say, and I hope that this happens a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I admire the work that you've done.
Thank you.
You and the team have, like, the impact that you're driving is something that, maybe in the moment some people can't see because it's not the cool.
We're in the rurals. That's the thing.
It's not the cool.
We don't have billboards on Grayston.
You know what I mean? Like,
we don't have billboards on Grayston Drive. You know what I mean?
And I think, like, the impact of this is seen so much further, in really meaningful parts of this country where it's driving employment, it's driving, poverty being alleviated,
100%.
really meaningful things.
100%.
Just to wrap it up, right? I've enjoyed this chat. Probably maybe a little bit more than the other ones. Because now, yeah, I think the hunger's gone. I think now it's the drive. Like you really want to build something.
I think I actually want to listen to that old one.
Yeah.
And then listen to this one. I want to see.
No.
I want to try and compare them.
You're more of a CEO now. What is one thing that you know now that you wish you knew at the beginning of your journey? By the way, I've asked you this question with every single episode. You've never given me the same answer.
That's a tough one. The one thing I wish I knew then that I know now, I think a lot of the stuff was there, but I think the importance of the work, of working on something that is above me, that is far above me, and understanding it's almost the importance of the work. It's nation building work. I don't know how to explain it. So it's patriotic. It's the importance of the work. And until a farmer holds you by the hand and says, "You guys saved me last year," with tears in her eyes, and you got me this deal and you got me that deal. Until that moment, sometimes you get stuck in the EBITDA and the this and the that. I think for me, it's the importance of the work. And I think every day it's a journey to try and not view things as numbers. And part of what breaks my heart is that as the business has grown, I'm less on the farms. I'm more on the, bringing the buyers in, bringing the deals in, etc. And every now and then I'll make sure within a month, I try to go on the farms as well and engage with the farmers. But it's the importance of the work. The work is important for the country. It's important. Ayanda's number shocked me. 1,000 jobs. That's crazy. That is insane. You know what I mean? So, it's the importance of the work. And when you actually sit down with the workers, with the farmers, it's mind-boggling, and I'm most proud of the fact that we can sleep well. We don't screw over any farmer. We can sleep well because doing good is embedded into our business model, So, I think I wish I understood that more. I think I did to some extent, but just the sheer importance of the work. We're talking to government even now, and they're looking to us, for solutions now, because we've grown and we've shown them we can do this thing, and nothing formalized yet. But even in those conversations, you realize just the sheer importance of the work that we are doing, and the ability of impact that it can have. And I think maybe one last parting shot. We're busy replacing our bakkies, and I was looking at the bakkies, and I think the Amarok is on 500,000 kilometers or something like that.
Wow.
And they literally do about 100,000 kilometers each annually. And those kilometers have stories on those are real stories of real farmers in far locations. That's why I'm saying we're not a Greyston Drive billboard company. Our work is in the rules. There's no farm in Bryanston. There's no big farm in Bryanston. Our work is in the outskirts, but the impact, just the sheer importance of the work for me is one of the things that gets me up. I feel like I'm in a nation building project, but I'm still an entrepreneur. I can still make money. Doing good is deeply embedded into our work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Keep building, bro.
Easy. I am gonna listen to that older chat. I need to. I wanna compare them.
Okay.